Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions, where real stories leave nothing hidden. The forks hadn't even touched dessert yet when she said it. Her dad was mid-toast. Her sister was scrolling through her phone. Her mom was pretending to enjoy her daughter's dry lasagna. And I was sitting right there, quietly running my fingers along the edge of the tablecloth, trying to keep the knot in my stomach from becoming visible. Then she leaned back in her chair, took one sip of wine, looked around the table, and said, "Sometimes I wish I'd just married for passion instead of practicality." The word practicality. It hung in the air like the scent of burnt plastic. I felt my throat go dry. My heart did that weird flutter like it forgot how to beat for a second. But no one else flinched. Her mom chuckled. Her sister smirked. Her dad didn't even pause the toast. I sat there, blinking. Was that about me? Was I practicality? She didn't look at me. She didn't need to. I glanced at my half-finished plate, then at my hands. I didn't know what to say. But then again, that's always been my problem, hasn't it? I feel everything, but I say nothing. I let things hurt me in silence, as if that's some noble act. As if bleeding internally makes the wound more romantic. She said it like it was a throwaway comment. Like she was reviewing a blender she regretted buying. Only the blender was me. I stood up. No dramatic scrape of the chair. No final words. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that says, "This is the moment I stop being a fool." I walked out of that house, past the family portraits, past the fake smiles, past the 7 years I spent turning myself into the version of a man I thought she wanted. Dependable, gentle, agreeable, and I left her behind. But the story doesn't end there. Not even close. You want to know what happened after I walked out? The text she sent? The voicemail her boss accidentally left? The night she showed up at my doorstep in tears? Oh, by the time I made it to the curb, the evening air felt like ice on my face. Not because it was cold, but because I was burning inside. I didn't take the car. I didn't have a plan. I just walked, past identical fences, past perfectly trimmed hedges, past my own reflection in shop windows, wondering how I became a man so forgettable. That sentence she said, "I wish I'd married for passion instead of practicality," played on repeat in my head like a broken voicemail. What did she mean by that? Did she ever love me? Was I a safe choice? A placeholder? Something stable while she waited for the life she really wanted? I remember checking my phone. No messages, not from her, not from anyone. And it hit me. No one even noticed I left. Her family kept eating, kept laughing. And she? She didn't chase me, didn't call out my name, didn't come running after me in the driveway like they do in movies. I ended up at this 24-hour diner across town. I sat in the corner booth alone, drinking burnt coffee while some teenager wiped tables nearby. My mind ran in circles. I thought about all the nights I stayed up fixing things for her. How I covered her student loans when she was in between jobs. How I skipped my own brother's wedding to go to a last-minute gala with her because she said it mattered to her career. And I thought, was all that just practicality too? I scrolled through our old photos. She used to rest her head on my shoulder like it was home. I used to believe I was her calm in the storm. But somewhere along the way, I became the storm. Or worse, I became background noise. Around 2 a.m., I got a message. "Corinne, where are you?" Everyone's asking 5 minutes later. "You seriously left because of that? Then you're being dramatic." It was a joke. I didn't reply. I stared at the screen for so long, my battery died. That silence. It felt heavier than any argument we'd ever had, because it wasn't about the sentence. It was about what it revealed. I didn't go home that night, or the next. I crashed at an old college friend's place who owed me a favor. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a beer and said, "Been there." But the questions were eating me alive. Who was I to her? Was she already seeing someone else? Was I the only one who didn't know this marriage had already expired? And then something strange happened. 2 days after the dinner, I got a call. Not from Corinne, not from her family. From her coworker, a guy named Nolan. I only met him once in passing. He sounded panicked. He said, "I probably shouldn't be doing this, but I figured you should know something's off. She lied about you. She told us you were separated months ago." I asked him to repeat that. He did. The moment Nolan's words hit me, I just stood there frozen in the middle of my friend's dim kitchen, holding a spoon over a bowl of cereal I no longer had any appetite for. She told us you were separated months ago." His voice echoed in my head like a slow-moving train wreck. I didn't even respond right away. I just let it sink in while the refrigerator hummed like it was trying to fill the silence. Separated? Months ago? There was no universe where that could be a slip of the tongue. I hadn't even left our house until 2 days ago. We were still sharing a bed last week. Cold and silent, sure, but still sharing. I was still making her morning coffee. Still packing her favorite lunch wraps because she didn't have time in the morning. And now I find out she's been telling her coworkers that we've been separated for months? I finally found my voice and asked Nolan, "Did she say why?" There was a pause, then a sigh. "She didn't really explain, man. Just said it didn't work out, but she's been coming in looking happier than ever lately. Like, new outfit every week kind of happy. And honestly, I always thought something felt off. She keeps texting someone nonstop. Everyone assumed it was you, but now I guess not." I thanked him and hung up. My hand trembled slightly, and I realized for the first time in years I was angry. Not the type of angry that lashes out, but the kind that quietly rips holes in your chest while you keep smiling for appearances. That night, I drove back to the house. I didn't knock, I didn't call, I still had my key. The house was quiet when I entered, and for a second, I wondered if she was even home. But then I heard it. Laughter, muffled, coming from the upstairs bathroom. I moved like I was sleepwalking, step by step up the stairs, heart pounding so hard I thought I'd pass out. The bathroom door was ajar. She was on a video call, sitting on the edge of the tub, legs crossed, hair tied up like she always did when she wanted to look effortlessly casual. On the screen was a man I'd never seen before, sharp jawline, shirtless, tattoos I didn't recognize. And then I heard her say, "Well, it's not like I'm really married anymore." He laughed and blew her a kiss. I didn't burst in. I didn't scream. I didn't say a word. I walked back down the stairs as quietly as I came up, feeling like a ghost in my own life. When I stepped outside, I noticed something else. Parked down the block, a car I didn't recognize. It had a parking pass from a hotel 2 towns over, a hotel we had once stayed at during our first anniversary. I remember it because I had spilled wine on the sheets and panicked over the cleaning fee. And now someone else had his pass from that hotel, parked outside my house. I sat in my car for nearly an hour trying to feel something other than humiliation. I kept asking myself, how long had this been going on? How many nights did she come home, kiss my cheek, and then text him while I folded her laundry? How many times had she looked me in the eye and said she was just tired, when in reality she was emotionally gone and physically somewhere else? But the most bitter question was this: why didn't I see it? Or worse, did I choose not to? The man on the screen, the fake separation story, the wine-soaked dinner where she announced my irrelevance like a punchline. It wasn't just betrayal. It was a slow, surgical removal of me from her life, piece by piece, word by word, until I was nothing but practicality. But something inside me shifted that night. The thing about betrayal is it doesn't just hurt. It warps everything. Suddenly, every memory feels suspect. Every smile she gave me, every "I love you," every dinner we shared. I didn't know which parts were real anymore. That night, as I sat in my car parked 2 blocks from the house I used to call mine, I realized I had reached a threshold. I wasn't going to wait around for an explanation. I didn't need more proof. I didn't need to catch them in the act or record a call. I already had the truth, the kind that sits like a stone in your chest and refuses to move. And I decided then and there that she would never get the chance to explain her way out of it. She made her choices. Now I'd make mine. I drove back to my friend's place, barely said a word when I got in. He looked at me, and without a question, handed me a cold beer and his laptop. I spent the next 2 hours doing something I never thought I'd do, dismantling my life. I changed passwords, froze joint accounts, removed myself from bills. I didn't scream, I didn't cry. I simply disappeared digitally, piece by piece. Then I packed a small bag, not with anger, but with strange clarity. I left behind most of my clothes. I didn't want anything that smelled like our home, if you could even call it that now. The next morning, I did one last thing. I wrote her a letter, not a dramatic monologue or a rage-fueled rant, just a plain white envelope with a few carefully chosen sentences. I didn't sign it with love. I didn't even sign it with my name. I just wrote what needed to be said. and slid it into the drawer of her vanity next to her favorite lipstick. She'd find it eventually. Maybe not that day, but when she did, it would sting. Not because it was cruel, but because it was honest in a way she never was. Then I left the key on the kitchen counter. No note, no explanation. Just silence. The same silence she had given me for months. What I didn't expect was how quickly the panic would set in for her. Less than 24 hours later, she called, then texted, then called again. At first it was mild. "Where are you? We need to talk." Then came the shift. "You're being ridiculous. Can we just act like adults?" And finally, desperation. "Everett, please, come home. This isn't what you think." But I didn't answer. I'd given her so many versions of me. The patient one, the forgiving one, the one who held on even when it hurt. She never met the version who finally walked away. That was the version she feared, and now she had to live with him. But of course, it didn't stop there. That night, I got a message from her sister. A photo to be exact. A screenshot of Corinne crying in the kitchen, surrounded by half-open drawers, my side of the closet gutted. The envelope I left lying open on the table. I didn't ask her what it said. I already knew. And just when I thought the dust might finally settle, just when I started thinking maybe, just maybe I could breathe again, another message came in. This time from a number I didn't recognize. No name, no greeting, just 6 words. "You don't know the whole story." I stared at that message for a long time. Something told me this wasn't Corinne. It didn't feel like her tone. It felt colder, like someone watching from the sidelines. And that's when the pieces started shifting again. Had I missed something? Was there more to this web than I thought? I had already lost everything. But part of me couldn't help it. I needed to know what that message meant. I needed to know what else she was hiding. I didn't respond to the message right away. In fact, I sat there for an entire hour just staring at it, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less ominous. "You don't know the whole story." 6 words. That's all it took to rattle me. Because despite everything, despite the video call I witnessed, the lies she told her coworkers, and the fact that she hadn't tried to deny it until I walked out, part of me still felt like I'd only seen the surface. And I didn't know if I was desperate to uncover more, or just terrified of confirming what I suspected deep down, that my marriage had been built on a foundation of half-truths since the beginning. I typed back, "Who is this?" but didn't hit send. I erased it, then typed again. "What do you mean?" Erased that too. Eventually I just locked my phone and shoved it under the pillow, like that would mute the weight of it. But I couldn't stop obsessing over the possibilities. Was this another man she had been seeing? Someone she lied to as well? Or worse, someone who had been in on it the whole time? By the next morning, I gave in. I sent one word. "Talk." The response came instantly. No texts. 8 p.m. Rooker's Diner. Come alone, Rooker's Diner wasn't far. A rundown place with flickering neon lights and the smell of stale coffee permanently soaked into the booths. I used to go there as a teenager. It was the kind of place where secrets didn't echo. They got swallowed whole. So I went. No questions, no expectations. Just a gnawing feeling in my gut that whatever I was about to hear wasn't going to be easy. The diner was nearly empty when I arrived. A waitress with tired eyes pointed me to a booth in the back, and I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Just when I began to think I'd been played, a woman slid into the seat across from me. She wasn't what I expected. Early 30s, sharp eyes, confident posture, dressed like she'd come straight from a business meeting. She didn't offer her name. Instead, she said, "I work with your wife." Or, I did. I stayed silent. She continued, her voice low but steady. "I don't like getting involved in people's personal messes, but you deserve to know that Corinne didn't just lie to you. She lied to a lot of people. She's been seeing someone, yes, but that's not the whole picture. There's more going on. Money, deals, people using your name." I blinked. "What?" She slid a flash drive across the table. "This has copies of emails, financial statements, stuff you should have been seeing, but didn't." Because she made sure you wouldn't, I stared at it, not touching it yet. "Why are you giving me this?" She hesitated. "Because I found out she used my login to cover her tracks. I could lose my job. But more than that, I watched her talk about you like you were some obstacle, Like you were a wall she just needed to climb over. She laughed about it. At work, in front of everyone. My stomach twisted. I finally picked up the flash drive, turning it over in my hand like it might burn me. "Who is he?" I asked. "The guy from the video call?" She shook her head. "You're thinking too small. This isn't just about cheating. It's bigger than that. And trust me, if I were you, I'd lawyer up before she does." She stood up and walked out without another word. I didn't even ask her name. Back at my friend's place, I stared at the drive for hours before finally plugging it into his laptop. What I found inside flipped my world on its axis. Bank transfers I didn't recognize. A business account I never approved. My signature, forged. Emails from Corinne to someone named JL discussing the sale of something under my name. Something I never agreed to. Something valuable. This wasn't about infidelity anymore. This was theft, manipulation, fraud. I always thought the worst part of being betrayed was the emotional wreckage, the aching confusion, the long nights spent replaying conversations, wondering where it all went wrong. But as I sat there, staring at page after page of forged signatures, shell company emails, and financial documents that had my name on them but none of my awareness, I realized something much uglier. The heartbreak was just the distraction. The real wound ran deeper. It wasn't just that she stopped loving me. It was that she never needed to love me in the first place. She just needed access. The flash drive was a Pandora's box of quiet crimes. There was an offshore account in my name, one I'd never touched. A side business registered using my social security number. She'd been siphoning funds from my family's trust. Money left to me after my dad passed. And redirecting them into that account for over a year. I'd been too trusting, too distracted, too practical. That word again. It rang in my ears like poison. I didn't sleep that night. I paced the apartment while my friend snored 2 rooms over, completely unaware that a slow-motion heist had been pulled on me under the disguise of love. Around 4 a.m., I sat down and opened a blank document. I began writing a timeline. Names, dates, transactions. I had no idea if any of this would hold up legally, but I needed order. I needed to feel like I had something solid beneath my feet again. Then, as the sun started creeping through the blinds, I emailed everything. The drive, the document, screenshots of our texts, even a scan of our marriage license, to a local attorney who had helped my friend during his divorce years ago. I didn't know what my end goal was yet, but I knew I wasn't going to be passive anymore. By noon, I got a reply. The attorney's name was Carla Mancuso. Sharp, direct. She called instead of emailing, and her first words were, "You need to come in. Today. Don't tell your wife. Don't go home." I met her that afternoon, hands sweating the entire Uber ride over. She walked me through the situation like she'd seen it 100 times, except she hadn't. Not like this? "Most of what she's done is in a gray area," Carla said, tapping the papers with her pen. "She used your identity to build something under her name. That's fraud, but it's hard to prove intent unless she confesses, which she won't. What we can do is freeze the accounts immediately, notify the banks, and file for legal separation. We take the initiative. We force her hand." Something shifted in me again. I wasn't just Everett, the quiet, careful husband anymore. I was the man she tried to erase, and I was finally, painfully awake. Carla filed the paperwork that same day. I signed documents without shaking, froze every joint asset, put a legal lock on the trust fund, changed the locks on the house through a locksmith I booked while she was at work, and then, the hardest part, I sent her a message, just one line. "You'll find the locks changed. All further communication will be through my lawyer, no anger, no insults, just distance, cold, clear distance." She didn't respond immediately. I imagined her checking the door, fumbling her keys, seeing the note taped to the front window with Carla's contact info. I imagined her face twisting, not in guilt, but in rage, because the thing she never expected was for me to outmaneuver her. 2 hours later, Carla forwarded me an email from Corinne. In it, she called me paranoid, claimed I was lashing out from insecurity, and said, "There's no need to ruin each other's lives just because we're both hurting." She didn't mention the forged documents. She didn't acknowledge the money. Classic Corinne, sugar over rot. But Carla had already expected that. She's deflecting. Don't engage. The moment she realizes you're not crawling back, she'll start slipping. People like her always do. I wanted to believe that. But nothing prepared me for what came next. Because 3 days later, I received a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. A man's voice, rushed and panicked. "Hey Everett, listen, I don't know how to say this, but you should check the news. It's about her and the company. Something happened. You need to see it." I didn't check the news right away. At first I just sat there staring at my phone, trying to steady my breathing. Something about the way the man spoke, rushed, shaky, like he was trying to warn me before it all came crashing down, made my skin crawl. I listened to the voicemail again. Still no name. Still no details. Just, it's about her. And the company. The word company stuck out. Because for months, Corinne had talked about work as if it were her sanctuary, the place she felt seen. I remember how she used to come home humming to herself, carrying wine from work parties I was never invited to, saying things like, "Don't wait up," or "It's just networking." And I, the naive, compliant husband, would nod along, thinking she was finally happy again. I opened the news app, searched her company's name, and there it was. Front page of the local business section. The headline read, "PR firm, exec accused of embezzlement, internal accounts frozen." My stomach dropped. Her name wasn't in the headline, but I clicked. And in the third paragraph, it was. Corinne L. Blackwell, mid-level executive at Foresight PR, is currently under internal investigation for her alleged role in the mismanagement of client funds, an unauthorized creation of external accounts tied to personal business interests. I read it twice before I could even move. Then I clicked the link to the video attached to the article. It was grainy surveillance footage, leaked, apparently, from inside her office building. Corinne, wearing the same red blazer I'd seen in her closet 2 weeks ago, could be seen speaking with 2 men. One of them slammed a file down in front of her. She didn't flinch. She smiled. That smile, smug, cold, untouchable. I watched her stand, calmly gather her things, and walk out of the room as if she had just won something. The article mentioned that several business partners had been unknowingly tied to the suspicious accounts. My heart sank. I knew instantly that meant me. She hadn't just used my trust. She'd used my name, my reputation, my financial history to create a shield for herself, while she funneled funds into private accounts. And now that everything was collapsing, her silence wasn't just manipulative, it was calculated. She hadn't begged me to stay because she missed me. She was scared. She wanted to keep me close until she figured out how to clean the mess she'd made. I got up, grabbed the folder Carla had helped me compile, and headed straight to her office. Not to confront her. I knew better than to give her the satisfaction. But I needed to speak with the legal department. I needed to get ahead of it. Show them that I had the paperwork, the proof, the frozen accounts, the lawyer on record, that I wasn't part of it, that I had been used. It was the most humiliating moment of my life, walking into that glass building, knowing people were probably whispering behind their desks. I kept my head down, asked for the company's compliance officer. A man in a gray suit escorted me into a back room and closed the door. He looked tired. He already knew who I was. "You're the husband, right?" I nodded. He sighed. "We didn't think you were involved. But we needed to be sure. We've frozen every account with your name attached. You're not in trouble, Mr. Blackwell, but you should prepare yourself. This is going to get messy." I handed him everything, the flash drive, the printed copies of bank statements, even the letter I left her, the one she had thrown back at me through her lawyer with the word "childish" scrawled in the margins. The man thanked me and paused at the door. If it's any consolation, she fooled a lot of people. It wasn't. Back outside, the air felt different, lighter maybe, or maybe I was just too hollow to feel the weight anymore. I sat on a bench down the street and stared at my reflection in a shop window. I looked like a stranger, like a man unraveling in slow motion. Then my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time, it was a text. "Meet me tonight. I have something you need to hear, something she was never going to tell you." I didn't respond, not right away, but I knew I'd go. The meeting took place in the back corner of a quiet bookstore cafe, the kind of place with crooked shelves, jazz humming through dusty speakers, and a barista who didn't care if you stayed for hours. I arrived early, nerves clawed at me again, but this time I wasn't afraid. just ready. Whoever this person was, whatever truth they claimed to carry, I needed it laid out in the open. No more secrets, no more manipulation wrapped in charm. She walked in 10 minutes late. Not Corinne, another woman I didn't recognize at first. Tall, dark curls pulled into a loose bun. A coat too expensive for a stranger. But when she introduced herself, I realized why her name sounded familiar. Jocelyn, the ex-colleague who had trained Corinne when she first started at Foresight PR. I had heard her name in passing over the years, always with a strange tone of dismissal. I now knew why. Jocelyn wasted no time. I'm not here to drag her through the dirt, but I also couldn't stay quiet anymore. I left that company when I found out what she was doing, not just to you, but to others. She used charm like currency. She played victim when it benefited her. She created a version of you that made her choices seem reasonable. But the truth is, she planned this for a long time. She bragged about manipulating paperwork, about choosing the safe husband while building something secret on the side. I listened without interrupting, though every word landed like a bruise. Jocelyn continued, softer this time. I think she loved being admired more than she loved anyone in particular. But don't let this define you. You weren't the fool. You were the foundation. She just never deserved it. We spoke for almost 2 hours, about patterns. About how people like Corinne spin webs, not because they're evil, but because they're empty and afraid of being seen without their masks. I left the cafe with something I hadn't expected. Clarity, not closure. I don't think that ever arrives in a tidy box. But clarity. And with clarity comes power. Weeks passed. The legal process moved forward. Corinne eventually agreed to an uncontested divorce. The company cut ties with her. Investigations wrapped, and though she narrowly avoided jail, her name was permanently stained. I heard through Jocelyn that she moved out of state, started over. Typical, but so did I. I rented a small studio across town, bought new furniture, nothing shared, nothing borrowed. I started jogging badly, got dinner with my friend Paul again. Slowly, awkwardly, I remembered what it felt like to laugh, and not wonder if someone was secretly rolling their eyes at me. And then, something I didn't expect. I started fixing watches again. Not for clients, for myself. Old ones, busted ones, ones with no resale value. I found peace in the small gears, the steady rhythm, the quiet patience it took to bring something forgotten back to life. Maybe that's what I was doing all along, fixing myself, one tick at a time. I'm not angry anymore, not at her, not even at myself. Some people teach you love, others teach you limits. Corinne taught me both. So, yeah, one sentence at dinner changed everything. But walking away, that changed me. Thanks for watching this emotional journey on Reddit Confessions. If you've ever experienced a moment, big or small, that shifted your entire path, share it in the comments. Maybe it was a family dinner, a historical event, a sentence someone once said that still echoes in your mind. We'd love to hear your story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out more confessions. Because sometimes healing starts with a voice, even if it's shaky. Until next time.